Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Rosanelli and welcome back to Meditation March. This is our fourth and final week of Meditation March. So thank you all so much for joining me and sticking with it all the way to the very end. It's been great having all of you. Today we are going to be talking about the lungs. I absolutely love the lungs. They are just such a beautiful organ in the body, and they do so much for us and for our cardiovascular system. The lungs represent both a beginning and an end. A beginning, every time we take a deep breath, we fill our body up with new nutrients, and then every time we breathe out, we let go of and release things that are no longer serving us, both physically and maybe emotionally as well. The lung meridian begins right here at the lungs. There's a point right in between the shoulder and the collarbone that's just right on top of the lung, so this is where the lung meridian starts. It goes down the inside of the arm and ends at the corner of the thumb. So our stretches for today are going to be focused on opening up our shoulders because the lungs are in and around the shoulders, protecting the heart, as I mentioned on Heart Day. To start with, you can either do this first stretch sitting or standing. You're going to bring your hands behind you, clasp your fingers together. Try, if you are able, to bring your palms touching as well so that you don't have a lot of extra pressure on your wrist crease, and we're just looking for a really nice opening across the front of the shoulders. So you should be in this position right now.
And we will begin with a body scan. Beginning on the front part of your left shoulder, just below your collarbone. And coming down the front of the arm, through the middle of the elbow, down the front of the forearm, up to the wrist, just below the thumb, crossing the wrist, coming up the thumb, all the way to the tip of the thumb. Now get a sense of where along that line catches your attention. Don't overthink it, just direct your attention to the first place that speaks to you. Perhaps there is an area where you feel sensation or more of an amplified signal. Wherever it is, really focus on it. Imagine you could trace the boundary of it. Is it moving or is it still? Is it shallow, like on the skin, or deep in the viscera? Review the boundary again. Where is the upper edge and the lower edge, below which the sensation isn't really of interest? How far does it go to the left and how far to the right? We call this having a complete experience of a physical phenomenon, without judgment, without interpretation. In today's practice, we will have two targets of our attention, one on the left and one on the right. This is the target on the left. Now let's shift. Bring your attention to your right foot. Feel the weight of your right foot against the surface, wherever it's resting. Feel the temperature of the air around your foot. Feel the texture of the surface, every detail. In slow motion, wiggle your toes and count your toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Press into the ball of your foot. Does it make contact with the surface, or is it surrounded by space? Press into your heel. Does it make contact with the surface, or is it surrounded by space? Now pretend that you have a magic marker and a piece of cardboard. Place the cardboard under the bottom of your foot and begin to trace your foot, starting at the big toe, tracing the ball of the foot, going down the arch, around the heel, up the outer side, up the little toe, and counting the toes again, tracing back to the big toe. Now we are ready for another shift. Direct your attention back to the target, the first place you were observing, and hold curiosity. Is it the same, or is it different? It's like you're taking inventory. What is present in this location now? It could be exactly the same. It could be a little different. It could be totally different. It could have disappeared altogether and now somewhere else along that line is lighting up. Bend your knees and sit down on the floor, making your way into a kneeling position with your knees about shoulder width apart. Bring your arms above your head and bend your elbows to cactus your arms in a very gentle back bend. Make sure you're not dumping weight into your lower back. Engage your abdominal muscles to keep your low back nice and straight. We are looking for an opening across the front of your shoulders, not a bend in the low back. And we will begin a scan on the other side, starting at the front of your right shoulder, coming down the inside of the arm, across the bicep, through the middle of the elbow, down the forearm, crossing the wrist, coming up the thumb, and finishing at the tip of the thumb. Once again, where is your attention drawn? Imagine the boundary. Where is the upper edge and the lower edge? How far does it go to the right and to the left? Just notice. Is it moving or is it still? Sometimes things will be dense and block-like. Other times they can be swirling or drifting. And you're just noticing, not trying to change it, not trying to figure it out, not asking why. Is it shallow or is it deep? Shallow would be on the outer surface. Deep would be somewhere way in the body. Do you have a sense of what color it is? What sound it might make? Now let's shift. If you would like to move into a further stretch, you can bring yourself into a camel pose by reaching your hands down behind you and grabbing your ankles for support. If this is too much, remain upright with your arms in a cactus. Bring your attention to your left foot. Feel the weight of your left foot against the surface. Feel the temperature of the air around your foot. Feel the texture of the surface. Every detail. In slow motion, wiggle your toes. Count your toes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Press the ball of your foot down. Does it make contact with the surface? Or is it surrounded by space? And what about your heel? Feel the space around it. Now pretend that you have a magic marker and a piece of cardboard. Place the cardboard underneath your foot and begin to trace your foot. Starting at the big toe, tracing the ball of the foot, going down the arch, around the heel, up the outer side of the foot, up to the little toe, and counting the toes again as you trace your way back to the big toe. Now shift your attention back to the target on the right. Is it still there? If so, is it the same? Or is it different? Just taking inventory. What is present in this location now? Now we will have a shift into our third position. Gently bring yourself into a seated position. Bring your right thumb to your left wrist crease. Find a little hole just below the thumb on the inside of the wrist and begin to apply pressure. Continue to apply pressure until you feel sensation, but not so much that it becomes painful. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And repeat on the right for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now grab your block, stretch your legs out in front of you, and lower yourself onto your block. Your block can either be on the lowest or the middle setting, and you want it to support your upper back and shoulders. Use 1 or 2 of your pillows to support your head. Grasp your hands together and bring them above your head, keeping your elbows bent for an opening across the chest and front of the shoulders. Direct your attention back to the first target, the one we identified on the left side of the body. Is it still there? If so, is it the same? Or is it different? If it's not there anymore, begin a body scan. Starting from the front of your left shoulder below the collarbone, coming down the bicep, crossing the elbow, down the forearm, crossing the wrist, coming up the thumb, and finishing at the tip of the thumb. Notice where your attention is drawn. Imagine the boundary. Where is the upper edge and the lower edge? How far to the left does it go? And how far to the right? Is it moving? Or is it still? How dense is it? Does it feel heavy or light? Is it superficial or is it deep? What color is it? What does it sound like? Don't judge. Don't interpret. Simply hold curiosity and listen. Now let's shift to the right fingertips. In slow motion, make micro movements in your right fingertips. Notice if they make contact with the floor. Count your fingertips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice if there is any pressure in your hand or your fingers. Feel the temperature of the air around your hand. Feel the texture of the floor. Imagine you have a piece of cardboard under your hand and a magic marker. Begin to trace your hand, going up and down each finger, one at a time, then down the outer side, across the palm, up the thumb, and back up the index finger. Feel the temperature of the air around your hand. Feel the texture of the floor. Imagine you have a piece of cardboard under your hand and a magic marker. Begin to trace your hand, going up and down each finger, one at a time, then down the outer side, across the palm, up the thumb, and back up the index finger. Now direct your attention back to the target on the left. Is it still there? If so, is it the same? Or is it different? Now shift your attention back to the target on the right. Is it still there? If so, is it the same? Or is it different? If it's not there anymore, begin a body scan. Starting from the front of your right shoulder, coming down the bicep, across the elbow, down the forearm, across the wrist, and up the inside of the thumb to the tip of the thumb. Notice where your attention is drawn, and imagine the boundary. Where is the upper edge and the lower edge? How far to the left does it go, and how far to the right? Is it moving, or is it still? How dense is it? Does it feel heavy or light? Is it superficial or is it deep? What color is it? What does it sound like? Now let's shift to the left fingertips. In slow motion, make micro movements in your left fingertips. Notice if they make contact with the floor. Count your fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice if there is any pressure in your hand or your fingers. Feel the temperature of the space around your hand. Feel the texture of the floor. As we did before, begin to trace your hand on a piece of cardboard. Your magic marker is going up and down each finger one at a time, then down the outer side, across the palm, up the thumb, and back up the index finger. Now we will have one final shift. Direct your attention to the target on the right. Really notice what is present. Maybe similar, maybe different. And what about the target on the left? Is it the same? Or is it different? And gently letting go of this meditation as you slowly begin to wiggle your fingers and toes to bring yourself back into your body. Continue resting here for as long as you would like.